Welcome to the second episode of the Trouble Understanding podcast. I'm still Joe, and the animals are restless today, so we might hear some meowing from an elderly cat or the slobbering of a small dog running around looking for affection. But isn't that all of us? First off, I just want to thank everyone who listened to the first episode. It was better than I expected. The response was better than I expected. I had quite a few people reach out, message me, tell me that they really loved the idea, that they loved the possibilities of what could happen with this. So I have a new goal to add to my list of goals with this podcast, and that is to not let you down. I really want to make sure that I please everyone with this podcast, as far-fetched as that sounds, and as much as I've always tried to recuse myself from being a people pleaser, because it's only dug me into deeper holes of crazy unhappiness. I really want to do right. I really want to do right by anyone that's putting any kind of emotion or attachment or just a connection into this podcast. Whether you connect with me or one of the guests that will be on to discuss what they're going through. It just feels really awesome to have put something out there that I was pretty nervous about, honestly, and for people to connect, to reach out. It felt really good, and I just want to make everybody else feel really good. As corny as that sounds, I think living in a state of positivity is a really good thing, and that's what I try to do. It's not always like that. I have a very dark sense of humor. I try to laugh at just about anything. I try not to take offense to anything that seems senseless to me. Anyway, let's start the episode. All right, well, here we go again. One thing that I wanted to talk about first up is the misconception that being depressed or suffering from depression means that you are constantly thinking about suicide. I don't know where that falls with everybody. When I'm speaking about this stuff, I'm only speaking from my own experience, so my perception is, of course, going to be vastly different from yours or anyone else's, because we all perceive things differently. We all react to things differently. We deal with things differently. But for me and my depression, I don't constantly think about suicide. It happens frequently. As I've mentioned before, I have no idea. I say I have no idea. I don't have any intention of killing myself at any time. I haven't made a secret pact with myself in my head saying that the day I turn 40, I'll go buy a gun. I don't want to do that. But this is something I've only ever told a doctor. I understand the appeal of suicide. Does that make sense? I understand why someone would want to get out. And sure, it's still extremely selfish, and thinking about the people that are devastated by the loss. I mean, putting all that aside, just speaking from the person who is going through the shit, the person that is deciding to end it all, going from that perspective very lightly, I can understand the appeal. Because sometimes things, they just feel like either it's never going to end, or you just can't see the exit. You can't see a way out. And it just seems so much easier to rest. And that's what I would imagine suicide being, is finally resting. So, yeah, I can see the appeal in it, but whenever I think about doing sort of a Raising Arizona flash forward into the possible future, and I see my kids dealing with it, dealing with their dad who took that way out, it devastates me. I'll try not to get all devastated right now thinking about it, but it's true. It absolutely wrecks me to think about them having to deal with me doing that, killing myself. That's one thing I want to try and do as well is when I'm talking about this stuff, I don't want to generalize it. I don't want to say, well, whenever I do that, because it seems to be taking away the impact of it. And you want it to have the idea of suicide, of killing yourself. You want that idea to have an impact so that it resonates with you, so that you think about it twice, so that you don't flippantly use it, even just talking about it, trying to get attention. That's a bad way to get attention, man. I don't get it. But man, I understand the appeal. And it's scary as shit. It's so terrifying to understand why it's okay and to accept that. Instead, I took a cue from a buddy that told me, we don't know when we're going to die. Just accept that you're going to die. And that's fine. That took a lot of the punch out because as someone who is highly anxious and for a while, and still, I sometimes can't get myself to go to sleep because I'm afraid I'll miss something. How ridiculous is that? What's going to happen at 3 a.m. But one of the things that I dealt with being super anxious was, well, when am I going to die? Is it going to hit me today? Am I going to get hit by a truck? Am I going to get struck by lightning? Is somebody going to just drive by and shoot me? Like, I don't even live in that kind of area. But I'm sure it could happen, at least in my mind. I'm sure it could happen. But yeah, what are your thoughts? Please let me know. And even if you don't want to talk on the podcast, that's totally fine. If you want to talk an email, send me an email. That's going to be I forgot to put it at the end of the last episode, but the email, I'll tell you now, and then I'll tell you at the end, and then it's also going to be in the description of the episode. It is simply troubleunderstandingpod@mail.com. So just send me your thoughts. I'll read them on the next episode. I'll read them out loud if you don't mind. I don't have to say your name or anything like that. I can just say, hey, this guy wrote in. Or this girl. But yeah, I would love that. I would love to hear those different perspectives. Just hit me with it. Another thing that I think a lot of us deal with, especially the depressed people, I think a lot what they deal with is my problems are nothing compared to what other people suffer. Well, I was beaten as a kid, but that seems minuscule compared to someone that was molested for half their childhood. And I found out that you can't think like that. You can't compare what you went through with what other people went through. There's starving kids in Africa, but, my car ran out of gas. Silly, but, I mean, you can't compare them because you went through your own struggle. You went through your journey, good or bad. That's yours. You have to own it and continue. Just because someone else had it rougher doesn't make your problems any smaller. So just own your problems. Not your problems. Own what you went through. That's one thing. I went through a lot of abuse as a kid. To myself, and watching my mom be abused, and watching that, and knowing that I had a family history, like a lot of the men in my family were prone to beating their spouse and their children, and I knew I never wanted to do that. So having gone through that, having watched my mother and myself and others getting beaten as a kid, I always thought that it actually was a good thing because it taught me to not do that. Obviously, I think any rational person would say, well, that's wrong. I shouldn't do that. But I think that there is some stuff that's in you, in your DNA, that carries through. It is behavioral, but I think it's a mix. It's a mix. Maybe. I don't know. I just know that I didn't want that for my family. I didn't want to go through that. I didn't want to put anybody through that, another living being through that. So I've done good about that. There's a lot of alcoholism in my family, and I'm not anywhere near that. I drink. But I haven't had a drink in months. I rarely drink. And even if I do, it's got to be somewhere that I'm not driving anywhere. Two reasons. I just have always stuck by that. Like, I won't even have a beer and drive anywhere. And then also, I just have terrible night vision. So I'm also paranoid that I'm going to get pulled over anyway for swerving, even though I'm not drunk. I'm just poorly sighted. But yeah, and then whenever my first kid was born, I kind of made it a point to not drink in case something happened to his mother where she became incapacitated, like she got hurt or something like that. Then I could take him somewhere and take her somewhere, somebody needed to go to the hospital. Like, I was the constant designated driver, and I was fine with that. I'm absolutely fine with that. I mean, I got a lot of the drinking single life out of my system. So that was nice to not have to worry about being an alcoholic, since that's another thing. I just got to worry about diabetes because I think that runs in the family too. Maybe that'll be another episode. I dive into my family. That'll be a 6-part mini-series. Back to anxiety for a second. One thing that I used to deal with, and it's not as bad as it was. I still get like a little hint of it every once in a while. But man, whenever I was younger, and all my life up until probably 5 or 6 years ago, I would get so, like, almost, I would nearly have a full-blown panic attack by simply waiting for someone to pick up the phone. And I'm not talking about like calling a girl that I liked or a new friend, somebody you wanted to impress. I'm talking about calling Domino's and ordering a pizza. Just waiting. Those rings were forever torture until someone picked up the phone and I had to speak with them. And that's crazy to me because I am a bit of a talker. I like to talk. I can talk about all kinds of different stuff. And I don't have a problem with engaging with strangers, with new people. I don't have any real issue with that. So it was always very troubling to me that I could go into a full-blown panic attack just from waiting for someone to pick up the phone. Anybody else experience that? That's definitely something that I'd like to find out the origin of, or what caused that kind of anxiety could have been waiting for my dad whenever I was younger for him to pick me up and he never showed up, waiting for other people, and just like a constant barrage of being let down as a kid, having to wait on people, and it just eventually turns into just anxiety? I don't know. I started typing out just as a writing exercise, starting with my earliest memory and just moving forward in time. And there was so much stuff that I either felt I might have repressed or just weird things where it was like, oh crap, that's why they left me there to watch TV, because they were going and having sex. Something weird like that. It's very strange to really reflect back on that kind of stuff. And I'm wondering if a lot of my anxiety issues, my scumbag father, no, there's no negativity there. I apologize. But he and his ex-wife used to drive down the street where I lived, and they would say they were coming to visit me, and when they leave, I'd be in tears. This was all, of course, thanks to my mom. Early on, whenever her and my dad split up, she did nothing but talk about what a great guy he was. So, of course, in my head, he is the best guy in the world. For all I know, he was out there saving lives or something, but he was actually running from the law because he was a jackass and didn't how to accept responsibility for his actions, for what he does. Anyway, so I'm sitting here thinking he's the best guy in the world, and he's sneaking up the street looking for me to just talk to. I can't even figure out what his actual intentions were with that. It was just bizarre. I mean, why would he do that? Is it just to torture my mom because then I go cry because I'm flipped out because, hey, I got to see my dad for 5 minutes and then he had to leave? I'm telling you guys, I'm fucked up. And this kind of deep, weird personal shit that I'm going to get into is only going to happen whenever I'm alone, probably. Because I'll start remembering things and get heated. And I have nobody to bounce things off of. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a fun ride. But whenever I do have a guest and I'm talking to somebody, I think it'll play a lot smoother. I've always been better about bouncing stuff off of people, so I could ask them something and then just react to what they're saying or how they respond. So it won't be as, I don't know. This is a weird thing for me, doing it just by myself, talking to the computer, talking to you guys, of course, but I mean, here in reality, I'm talking to the computer. You guys can't talk back to me yet. This is all going to be frozen in time. It's just there. And then I'm going to release it into the universe, into the atmosphere, into the reality, our plane of existence, and it's going to be out there, and you guys can listen to it, forget about it, remember it, connect to it, whatever. And it doesn't matter. It's out there. It'll be out there. And the next episode will be out there. And there's no turning back. I think I might be veering off a little bit. The point is, I'm going to have a lot to talk about, but for some reason, I might have trouble filling in space. So whenever I'm alone, these episodes might be shorter, but I'm thinking that whenever I do have a guest and we get to talking and everything starts rolling and we start breaking some stuff down, figuring some stuff out, figuring each other out, I think then we'll have a longer episode. So maybe these are like mini episodes. I don't know. I'm going to call them episodes because guess what? I'm still putting in the work. In fact, I'm pretty sure when I do have a guest, I'm still going to do 15 minutes beforehand of just talking about my stuff, getting that out there before getting to whoever I'm talking to. That way, when I am talking to them, they get full attention. They get to talk about what they want to talk about themselves, and I'll discuss it with them, but I don't want to bring my stuff into it. I want it to be fully devoted to them. So I guess that's going to do it for now. I think the first few are going to be short, on the short end like this, and that's just I'm still finding my footing. Let me have that, I guess. And then whenever we have the guests, it'll start to even out, I think, and evolve into something really beautiful. So stick with me, please. Please stick with me. Let's do this together. And you've been listening to the Trouble Understanding podcast. You can contact me via email at troubleunderstandingpod@mail.com, or look us up on Facebook. We're there too. So we'll see you next time.